Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the female solution.
And good evening. Welcome to the On-Air Daily News Hour. I'm Naima Latif, and we're excited because we get another opportunity to inspire you with some current news and some upcoming news, and for those who are making news happen. Well, today we are joined with our own Mama Dee Yhwhnwbn, who has been giving us some insight about historical events happening and events that need to be commemorated as have happened, so that we understand why we're experiencing what we are experiencing. So let's take a brief break to greet our global family joining us from all over the world, and we'll come back with Mama Dee. We'll be right back, so stay with us.
We are global transformers, changing the world from the way it is to the way it should be. We are one. Wherever we live on this earth, we are one human family. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to extend a greeting to all the members of our family, whenever and wherever you may be listening around the world. To our family in China, Ni Hao. In India, Namaste. In Japan, Konnichiwa. In Korea, Annyeonghaseyo. In Russia, Здравствуйте. In Germany, Guten Tag. In Poland, Dzień dobry. In France, Bonjour. In Spain, Hola. In Italy, Ciao. In Egypt, Ahlan wa sahlan. In Ghana, Akwaba. In Nigeria, Peleo. In South Africa, Sawubona. In Senegal, Nangadef. In Kenya, Jambo. In Israel, Shalom.
In Pakistan, Afghanistan, Palestine, and Saudi Arabia, Assalamu alaikum. Greetings, and may peace be upon you all. Join us live on the On-Air Radio Network. Call 727-731-5192. We want to talk to you. Yes, we do want to talk to you, and we want you to talk to us too. And you can give us a call at 727-731-5192, the On-Air Radio Network line. And we've got up on the screen the On-Air Daily News. Front page story, of course, is that the Obama Center is set to open on June 19th. And so many people will be coming to Chicago to commemorate this great event. And this event is made possible by our former president, Barack Obama, who has chosen to select a South Side community to lend space for this commemorative library that is a historic place, also a place of training and education for youth. And it's certainly one that is hoping to revitalize economically the South Side community. It's in the Woodlawn area, and it is hoped to provide employment for local residents because economics is what is necessary for our growth. But we've got with us today a historian who is a contributor to the On Air Daily News, a reporter and columnist, our own Mama Dee, who has been keeping us abreast of much of the history that happens throughout our nation, throughout our world, and history that has continued to affect our families. One of the things that we are constantly reminded of is the fact that our children tend to be seen as older than they are, and they unfortunately undergo a lot of traumatic experiences because when things happen to them, it's assumed that they're grown when in fact they're still children. And Mama Dee has been one that has constantly reminded us of the legacy of Emmett Till, a 14-year-old boy whose gruesome murder set in motion the momentum that led to the passage of civil rights legislation and sparked a nation to fight for justice. And so now we're looking at some other historical figures who use their voice to change the future. So, Mama Dee, welcome to On Air Daily News. We're going to pull your image up on the screen so people can be reminded of your beautiful face as we talk about your latest endeavor. And Mama Dee is one who puts ideas into action and gets legislation passed. And that's what makes a difference. It's one thing to write about it. It's another thing to make others legislate about it. And that's one of the things that we so appreciate about her activism is that it leads to laws. And this is what makes a change in our world. So, Mama Dee, of course, you are preparing for many upcoming events and commemorations and recognitions of things that are happening throughout our city, especially because Chicago is such a historic place. So many people have come through here and have changed the world in which we live by sparking movements. We've seen everything from the Black Panthers to historic mayoral races and all kinds of events that have inspired others around the world. And people like yourselves who have taken ideas and created legislation to change things. That is often what makes a difference for so many, especially those who are not always aware of the history of things. And so we're grateful that you keep us abreast. So for those who may not have been around, may not have been even alive during certain periods in our history, you've definitely kept the torch burning So we've got one of your latest columns up on the screen, and you've been telling us about an individual that many may not know, Reverend M. Earl Sardon, who is perhaps someone that has behind the scenes had such an impact on our society, on our politics. He was a publisher, and I was not aware. Tell us about his connection to the Crusader newspaper.
Well, first of all, just let me say it's good to be among the global transformers.
Absolutely. Yes, we are.
It's been a minute, and it's just wonderful to be touching bases on air. You know, you mentioned a number of things, and the Obama Center. You know, a lot of people were, you mentioned about the economic boom that it will mean to that community. And that was one of the problems when he refused to sign a community agreement, because the people that are living there now, they were aware that once the center is up and running, lots of other people with more money and more influence would be moving into the community, and they would be pushed out. And of course, that's the downside of the progress that the center is bringing to the city. So he was against the community agreement. There was a lot of marching and picketing and protesting. And then it was rumored or thought that he was on board with it again. And then it wasn't true. So many people that have been living in that community for generations have been priced out because of the new industry coming in. So that's unfortunate. However, you know, that is a very historic site already, because that's where the World Fair took place.
Wow.
At that part of Jackson Park.
I did not know that.
And it wasn't, and it wasn't too many years after enslavement, and they refused to allow any Black people to participate. And this is when Ida B. Wells, she got busy, and the reason she has a street named after her in Chicago now, because she had a newspaper, and she handed out leaflets, and she did her protest there where it counted. The only Black person that was allowed to be at that World's Fair was Frederick Douglass, and he wasn't there representing America. He was there representing Haiti.
Ooh.
So, you know, we have had to fight and struggle for every morsel. And sometimes it seems like 2 steps up and 4 steps back, because when you forget your history, you have others to erase it. And that is what's happening now.
Wow.
Our history is being erased. We almost hear something about it every day. I just heard today that they were removing the book Roots Alex Haley wrote the book Roots, and of course it was based on his finding his own and tracing his ancestry back to Africa. And then it, of course, became a mini series, Roots. And that was just nothing like it. I think it wasn't in about 1977 or 70.
Yeah, it was around there, because I remember I was a freshman in high school. I remember when that came out and everybody was talking about it. And I remember at the time my mother was still working before she retired, and she talked about the impact of that show. She worked in a multiracial location, so you had a lot of blacks and whites. But she said the day after that first episode aired, it was so silent in there, you could hear a pin drop. It was like the whites were too afraid to say anything because they knew all the blacks were angry. And so it just, we couldn't talk about it, because it brought up such deep emotions in the black people, just realizing, even though you kind of knew a little bit about slavery, but you didn't really feel it, and you didn't really hear details, but then to experience it from that perspective, seeing a young man get captured, seeing him on a slave ship, that whole week that show aired. She said the blacks and the whites in the workplace, they did not talk to each other, because all the whites knew that all the blacks were furious. So that was an experience that she was having at work. And I think that it really did have an impact on a lot of black people who had not been aware of how much slavery took away our past.
And white people who had not been aware. And I remember that I think the weather, it was some kind of snow or bad weather.
Yes.
Because people were locked in. It was similar to what happened when people couldn't escape. They had to sit there and watch it.
Yes.
The weather wouldn't allow them to go anywhere else. That's like what happened with George Floyd. Because of the pandemic, you were locked in.
Yes. Yes.
You couldn't escape. So everybody sort of had to watch that lynching in real time.
Ooh,
watch
that's what happened.
An act of cruelty and murder before your very eyes.
Yes. Yes.
And you couldn't go outside, and you couldn't escape. It's just the hand of Almighty God has a way of moving and compelling you when sometime an event, an idea, when its time has come, and you can just feel the mighty hand of saying, no, you're not going anywhere. And the snow in Washington and everything, and you had to sit there and watch Roots. It was the first time they had ever had any mini-series like that. And it was captivating because it was true.
Right.
That's what did it. And when you saw, see, we have been there. People say the difference in, you will hear people say slaves, and you will hear people say enslaved, because there's a great difference.
Yes.
They captured a free people. They didn't capture slaves.
Right.
They captured free people.
Right. And I think that's what hit people, because the way it had always been presented to us is that they brought slaves out of Africa. We were slaves. So the idea was planted in the minds of Black people that we had always been enslaved. So they really didn't get the understanding until Roots. Many Blacks didn't get the understanding that there were free people that were captured and forced into slavery. And that changed everything. It's like, oh, we weren't slaves, we were free, we had our own had our own society going on, minding our own business. And then you realize someone invaded your homeland and then forcibly took you out.
Right.
Yes.
Actually kidnapped you.
Yes.
And then the way they said, oh well, the Africans sold off their people. Hey, wait a minute. Most of those Africans had not seen a white person. Hadn't seen a white person before. So how is it that you speak the language and you everything else? You know, when the Africans put white on their face, it was paint.
Right. Right.
And not only are you seeing this white person for the first time, it's not like, oh well, we just sat down and we negotiated how much he was giving me for my, you know, it's ridiculous when you really think about just, well, they stole their own people. Yeah, I have never seen a white person before. I certainly can't speak their language. They certainly can't speak mine. And then when I see you're on a ship that can take a cannon and blow the whole village apart, that's big magic.
Yeah, the whole. If
I got a bow and arrow. I mean, I got a spear and you got a spear. We one-on-one. If I got a bow and arrow and you got a bow and arrow, our warfare is one-on-one. But when somebody comes in with a Gatling gun and blows up all the teepees, or in Africa, somebody with a cannon blows down the whole village, we're different. We're dealing with a whole different ball game.
You know, that's interesting when you think about the whole science of warfare and the fact that military weaponry changed literally the face of the planet. Now, gunpowder and all of that was something that had been invented in Asia to be used in ceremonies. But it was the Western nations that weaponized it and created what we see now in terms of the explosiveness that destroys life. So you can turn anything into a weapon based on your mindset. And when a person has an aggressive, warlike mindset, then they look at how they can use something to kill somebody, as opposed to how can you use something to create life. So that's the challenge that we have now, is to change the mindset so that everything that gets invented doesn't turn into a new weapon. Everything that we're seeing now in terms of artificial intelligence, where they're creating things, and you see false information on the news all the time. You see people and doing things that, of course, they could not have been having done, but it's created through artificial intelligence, which could be something that we could use for good. But when people choose to use it for harm, then people could literally tell a lie on you. They could take your image and put you in a place that you were not, and have you saying something you didn't say, and then charge you with a crime. So it's almost like you can't believe anything you see or hear today, because there are ways to falsify everything. And you know, even being in the communications business, how do you maintain the integrity of your communication when everything that we've been taught in history has been a lie? Now they can create things and make it appear that something happened by taking somebody's image and creating a lie. So how do you even know when what you're seeing and hearing is the truth? So let me ask you this, because you grew up in a time where they were not telling us about the truth of our history, who we were and what we did, the empires we built, the inventions we had, that we weren't learning any of those things. What was it that inspired you to decide to take back our history and to learn history and to promote real things that happened, because you discovered we had been lied to? What was it, a particular thing that happened, or an experience? What was it what gives you your fire now?
It's almost always something that happens. My mother was a triplet, and I was the 9th child out of 10.
Oh, wow.
And there's only my sister and myself that are left. But the 10th child, my brother, he's now deceased, he was born with this fungus on his lung. And he didn't have enough air quality to form words until he was 4 years old. He couldn't even talk. And so we lived in this little town called Scotts Ark, outside of Little Rock, Arkansas. And my earliest remembrance is always we had to get on the Greyhound bus and we had to go into Little Rock, into where the hospital was. Now, in those days, you didn't have, well, you had dirt roads and stuff, and no running water, electricity. I went to a 3-room schoolhouse. But anyway, in those days, there was no clinics and no hospitals and no telephones. So we had to go on the Greyhound bus, and we had to go into town to where the hospital was. And I was just, I was 3 years older than my brother when he was little. And I was 5, because you started school at age 6. And I was 5 years old. And I was used to riding on this bus, going to town with my mother and brother. So this one day I hopped up on the bus and I got myself a window seat. And I was always grown. I was grown because I never remember being little. Little was not in my vocabulary.
You were born grown.
I was. My sister was 18 years older than me, and she wore ribbons to match her socks. And I wore a ribbon to match my socks, and I was always a big girl. And people asked my advice, and I was always handy to give it. And as my brother used to tell me, he called me the FBI, and he would tell me, he was 12 years older than me, he would say, you gonna beat the case for me? And he would just lay out his problems, and I would lay out the solutions. So I was little, didn't exist. And people don't believe this, but I made 50 cents a week babysitting my niece who was 5 years old today. So I was too young to pick cotton in the fields. So I watched the baby. But then until they found us, after you change the baby and you give the baby the bottle and the baby is still crying, so then they show up, me and the baby is crying.
Oh, wow.
Maybe that wasn't working out too well. But anyway, getting back to the bus. So I got on the seat. I was 5. I wasn't old enough to go to school at age 6. There was no kindergarten. So I wanted to look out the window. And, you know, you're supposed to pay and go back in the back or whatever. But I had my window seat, and I had hopped up on that bus. And I want to look out the window. I want to look out the window. Oh, I protested and protested. I guess my little neck was too small for the bus driver to pitch me on it or hang it up by a rope or something. And I just carried on and on and on, and I refused to give up my seat on the front of that bus. And I was able to ride all the way into town, looking out the window. Oh, it was a wonderful ride. It was the most beautiful ride I ever had. I saw the animals and the cars and the people, and I just was enjoying myself. And then when I got home, I was name called for the first time.
Oh, my.
My mother said, oh, that little heifer said,
Oh, no.
black man up there on the front of that bus. I didn't know what a heifer was, but I knew it wasn't my name. And I was always such a good one. I don't ever remember being spanked or anything else. Yeah, you got children like that. They just grow.
Yes.
And I was one of those. And I didn't understand what I did bad. You're 5 years old. You have an idea. When is the time for commercial?
Yeah. We're gonna take a quick break. That's how you do a cliffhanger. See, so y'all want to hear the rest of that story. So we're gonna come right back to find out what happened after she had the audacity to sit on the front of the bus. So we'll be right back after this quick break. We want you all to stick and stay. Don't stray away. And if you got some comments, you can give us a call, 727-731-5192, because we want to hear from you. And we will be right back after this quick break. So stay with us.
Welcome to Master Force with Mushim Suit. Join us each week on Thursdays at 7 a.m. Central, live on Facebook and YouTube on the Female Solution page. As we dive into powerful topics designed to assist you in mastering your life force, our conversations feature a diverse lineup of experts, all dedicated to your growth. Tune in weekly to discover new ways to elevate your spirit and raise your vibration. And remember, we are ascending.
Leaders of nonprofits empowering worlds. Let's go.
But the vision that God gave me, I felt that it was time for me to step out and work on the vision that God gave me.
We need look no further. We have a unique voice. We have a unique talent pool.
And we are back, and you are watching the On Air Daily News Hour. I'm Naima Latif, and our guest today is On Air Daily News columnist and reporter Mama Dee, and she's got a history that we need to hear about because it changed a whole lot of lives. So now, Mama Dee, you were telling us about the moment, the day that changed your life when you dared to ride on the front of the bus in during the era of segregation. So how dare you? So what happened, and how did your mother respond?
Well, it was big news to everybody, but nobody explained anything to me. Every time somebody would come over, they would all talk about how I sat on the front of the bus. Now, I think the adult view was one day all of us would be sitting on the front of the bus. So they had an adult view, but they didn't explain it to me. And I just knew that I hadn't done anything bad. Even though you're 5 years old, you know when you do something bad and when you haven't done anything bad. And I recall we had this great big round table. So when the people would come and visit, and they would talk about, this was big news, I guess. And I recall hiding under the great big round table.
Oh, wow.
And I was telling myself I didn't do anything bad. I'm trying to rack my little brain. And no, I didn't do anything bad. My mother, she's the bad one. She did something bad. She's bad. So I think my sister that was 18 years older than me, she became my mother. And my mother became my grandmother. And all through growing up, I just didn't like her. I didn't remember what had happened. But I didn't like her. I didn't want to be around her. And I didn't want to go shopping. I was on my menstrual cycle for over a year, and I didn't tell her anything about it because I just didn't like her for some reason. And when before I graduated and got my degree in journalism from Columbia College, in one of our classes, our instructor said to us, "Now I want you to close your eyes. Everybody close your eyes and go back and back and back in time to when something first happened. Something happened to you." And I went back, and there I was, 5 years old, on the front of the bus.
Wow.
The flashbacks. And then I just thought about, segregation doesn't just hurt you physically and mentally, but there are spiritual injuries. The spiritual injury of not having a right relationship with my mother because of segregation.
Wow.
And I didn't realize. Well, that's why I say I started my freedom fighting work at the age of 5 when I refused to give up my seat on the front of the bus. But I didn't really comprehend it until Reverend Jesse Jackson died. And he talked about his experience on the bus.
Yes, same thing. And he was a little boy, and yes, and he wanted to sit on the front. And I think he's had an uncle or somebody that made him come sit in the back. Yeah.
See, and that was the whole thing. He was just a little boy, but he jumped behind the driver whenever he got the chance to get in a car. He sit behind the driver. I guess he pretended that he was driving.
Yes.
He had this thing about hopping and sitting behind the driver. And this is what he did on the bus. Yes. He hopped on the seat and sat behind the bus driver.
Yes.
And whoever it was, his uncle, whatever, his mother pinched him. This is what he said. She pinched him, and he cried. And then the adult on the bus was explaining to him, well, she did that because she loves you. Well, to a 6 or a 7-year-old, when you pinch them and make them cry,
that don't feel like love.
It doesn't feel like love to you. So I know how far he was getting, because in his little 6-year-old brain, like in my little 5-year-old brain, but that was the other part of the damage, is what our parents taught us. A nigger ought to stay in a nigger's place.
That is it. And that's the most painful thing, when your parents they believe they're protecting you from harm, and because they grew up where they saw people lynched for trying to demand respect. So out of fear, they would reinforce our compliance with segregation. And it's always very painful, because it's like someone telling you, you must pretend to be inferior. You must deny your God consciousness of your greatness as a being and pretend to be lesser than, so that these other people will not be angry. I mean, that, and it goes against your soul, just rebels against that. But this is what our parents believed they had to do to keep us safe. And it is very much a trauma to go through that. So that was what lit the fire in you at 6 years old, going through that. So that was the beginning of your being an activist.
I think Jesse was about maybe to 7, but it was 5 years old for me.
Yes.
But that's what's so painful. We didn't just get the Willie Lynch indoctrination, but we got the indoctrinations from our own parents.
Yes.
Stay in your place.
Yes.
And when he understood it, he said, I am somebody. No, I'm not accepting. I need to be lesser. I need to be in the back. No, I am somebody. And that was a spiritual weapon.
Yes. Yes.
Because that's when the chains fall off of you. When you say, no, I am somebody. In my own right, I claim my humanness. I claim my soulness.
Yes.
My soul is just as good as anybody's soul. I am. Yes. I don't care what I got on. I don't care what I look like. I don't care what you say about me. I'm too fat, too short, I am somebody.
Yes. And that was a healing for a lot of people who all their lives have been made to feel like nobody. So we had to undo a lot of programming that was designed to make us feel like we were of less value, or that we were nobody, or that we were undeserving of respect. So that slogan itself did so many decades of heart and mind damage, as you say, because you don't even realize that everything that you read in the newspapers, and little negative cartoons like Little Black Sambo and the cartoons, I mean, all kinds of little insults, and we would see that all everywhere you go is this underlying message that you are of less value and you don't deserve respect.
You're to be laughed at, and you're to be poked fun at. Yes. I think people are talking today about, I think Kevin Hart or some kind of roast that they did for, and they just crossed the line.
I know, meanness.
Black women. Did you hear about it?
I heard bits and pieces that it got to a point of being really cruel. And you just wonder what people do in the name of humor, because sometimes humor is very thinly veiled hostility. So I hadn't heard the actual jokes, but I did hear that it was kind of offensive. So had you heard parts of it?
Yeah, I heard Dr. Umar Johnson talk about it, and it was a group of 17 white men that came up with those offensive, it couldn't have been cruelty, a blackface, when they had the minstrel shows,
mm-hmm.
and the black meme, it's always been at our expense, but they never would have said that about the Holocaust survivors or homosexuals. Yes. or transgender. Nobody on the planet would have. You don't joke about being lynched.
I know. How is that funny? That's never funny.
Lynched. And Omar said that I called in on BON and I asked him, did he think that I wanted to know, did he think that the civil rights leaders and organizations like the NAACP and Urban League should make a statement. And he said, definitely, not only should they make a statement, but all the sororities and the
fraternities,
all leaders, everybody
yes,
should be speaking out against it. He said it should be like that Target when they got out of line and they could go into the Target and target the store and boycott and all this kind of stuff. So they said that he said that definitely something should be done about that so that they can say if it happens again, this is what we are going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was such a deep level of racism, and until it attacked our race, our entire race. And he said that it was just a lack of self-respect, a lack of racial pride. It was just, and it offended us as a group. But there is lynching. There's no kind of joke that you can make out of that, because our child, Mateo, was the only one that was lynched. He lived to be 14, 1 month and 2 days old, because his birthday was July 25th. And so when you have had your children that young lynched in real time, there's no joke about that.
Absolutely.
And to attack Black women the way they did, there could be no joke about that. So I didn't really know about it until they had a whole program today concerning it. But this gets back to I am somebody.
Right.
I attended a seminar, and it was I am from nobody to somebody, or I am somebody. Anyway, this was a group of young people, and one of the moderators asked the young person, he said, well, do you see anybody today that would take Reverend Jackson's place? He said, no, we don't need anybody to take his place, and it went back to, I'm somebody, and my daughter was 10 years old. She went to visit, she went on a vacation with my mother to visit her sister. Mm-hmm. And she called me on the phone, and I asked her, I said, are you minding your grandma? And she said, no.
No. She's honest.
I'm about to pay. She said, no, Ma, I told my own self what to do.
Oh, see, there you go. Yeah, see, I don't need somebody to tell me what to do. I told my own self what to do. I like that. Yes.
My own self what to do. It changed my life. Because I went back to my preschool scholars, and at one time I had 18 2-year-olds, and one of them was the youngest child of Haki Madabuti and Tapisha Madabuti. And when they were 3-year-olds, they were on the front page of the Defender, but my 18 2-year-olds with one assistant, they were in a science fair, and they dealt with the nonsense, not specified. And at age 4, we met with Mayor Harold Washington down on the 5th floor of City Hall, gave him 2,000 signatures, asking him to proclaim April 4th as a day for victims of violence, which he did. Getting back, activism
at 2-year-olds. See, there you go. When you train up a child.
Getting back to, I told my own self what to do. Never did I go from that day forward that I tell my little preschool scholars what to do. I say to them, you need to give your feet some orders. You need to tell your feet to stop kicking that table. You need to tell your hands to stop messing with that.
I like that. You tell your parts. You are in control of your parts. So you tell your feet to stop kicking. You tell your hands to stop grabbing. You tell your own self what to do.
You tell your own self what to do. Now that's discipline.
That's
If
discipline.
I gotta stand over you with a whip and tell you what to do, that's not discipline.
That's not discipline.
Discipline is when you tell yourself what to do.
That's right.
And that is why the first 4 years of life are in your educating the subconscious brain are so key. You got 80% of your information, and violence prevention should begin in preschool.
Absolutely. Well, Mama Dee,
yes.
we got to take one last break, but we're going to come right back and continue on that, because one of the things that I want to deal with is the way we have raised our children with violence and what we need to do to stop that. So we're going to take one last quick break, and we will come right back. And you are watching the On Air Daily News Hour, and we're talking to On Air Daily News columnist Mama Dee. We'll be right back after this last break, so stick and stay. Don't stray away. I'll be back after this quick message. When you see Black children misbehaving in public, being loud, disrespectful, and destructive, do you think to yourself, what they need is a good beating? That's what's wrong with these parents. They don't know how to discipline their children. Were you disciplined in that way? And did your parents also call you stupid, ignorant, and lazy? That's the way you break a slave. You terrorize them with constant fear of painful punishment. You teach them they're powerless to speak up, and you insult them so they feel like nothing. We were broken by parents who were broken, by parents who were broken. It's time to end the cycle of brokenness and bring healing to ourselves and our communities by using knowledge, respect, and love. We'll show you how. I'm Naima Latif. Get the book Slavery, the African American Psychic Trauma. On sale now. Go to www.naimalatif.com. Yes, we are back. And, we've been talking for a long time about the way we raise our children and that whole slave breaking kind of system that many of us were raised with. The beatings, the whippings, the insults. And you can't develop a child who feels good about themselves and has love for themselves and feels like somebody if you use that slave breaking system of so-called discipline in raising your child. So Mama Dee, what is it that we need to change in the way we are raising our children so that they do feel like somebody? And they do have the ability to tell themselves what to do.
First of all, we need to love them into shape instead of just whipping them into shape, causing them to get bent out of shape. If we love them into shape, they will stay in shape. There's a rod in your hand, but there's also a rod in your mouth. So you use the rod, the destroy the wicked with the rod in your mouth. That talking to your child, you don't have to use the rod in your hand. If you correctly use the rod in your mouth and love them into shape. The other thing that we should, in teaching our children to accept responsibility.
Yes.
And you said, well, how can you teach a little child like that? Well, easily. When they're crying, and they're pointing to somebody else, all adults know is hit. You hit him because he wouldn't be crying if you hadn't hit him. You hit him. But to children, hit is different from kick. They're not the same thing. So they're going down to the count. I didn't hit him. So when this one is crying and they're pointing at you, I call you over. And I never demand tell him you're sorry. That's a sing-song without any accountability. Oh. So I don't tell him that. I said, you need to tell them something. And sometimes they would tell them something. Sometimes they'd say, I don't want to tell them nothing. Ooh. I said, well, okay. Go over there and sit down and think about it. So they sit down for about 5 minutes. They want to get back to the group. And then they got their hand up. I want to tell them something. So, okay. I'm sorry that I kicked you, that I spit on you, that I took the toy away from you, that I pulled your hair, all kind of stuff. And if I was stuck on hit, I wouldn't be getting anywhere, and they wouldn't be getting anywhere because I just taught them how to take responsibility and to be accountable for their actions. Yes. And you won't grow up and say, well, if you say I'm sorry, if you want me to say I'm sorry, then I'll say I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. You're sorry for what? Very seldom do we teach accountability. But that's the way you teach it.
That's the way you teach it.
You have them say what they did.
Yes.
And then you get to find out what's happening in the classroom, spitting and kicking and hitting. And all kinds of stuff is going down. If you get stuck on hit, and so many parents are, and their children will say, I didn't hit him. I didn't hit him.
And they might have spat on him.
Yeah, right. They spat on him, but that wasn't hidden.
Yeah.
And here you are calling this little child a liar. You're telling them that they did something, and they're going down to the count saying, I didn't. No, I didn't hit him. I said, oh.
Yes, as if that's better.
And then I'm teaching them how to speak in a complete sentence too.
Yes, that is important.
I am sorry that whatever it is, you're taking accountability for your actions.
Yes.
And then one of the other things is a little short story. I always would stretch my 2-year-olds. I bought them puzzles for 6-year-olds, so they had to struggle a little bit. And they would, I can't do it. I said, oh, yeah, you can. You just need to struggle. Yeah. And then they would figure it out. I did it.
They'd be so proud of themselves because they figured it out.
Yeah, they did it. And our grandmother came into the room, into my classroom, and she said her grandson had gotten these new shoes that hadn't been broken in yet. And so she tried to help him with the shoes. And he said, no, Grandma. Mama Dee says, I need to struggle.
Oh, wow. Well, Mama Dee, I am sure all of those young people, I'm sure their lives were changed by you having been their instructor and you challenging them and teaching them how to be responsible to themselves, for themselves. I'm sure that those 2- and 3-year-olds were transformed by being students of yours. So thank you for shaping the future and all the work you've done. It is actually time to go. Oh my gosh, it's 8:00. Time flies when you're having fun. Well, thank you so much for being our guest this evening. We appreciate you. And we want to and remind you all to go to onair.dailynews.com and you can read the wisdom of Mama Dee right there on the editorial page. And throughout the publication, you can see her words of wisdom as she reports on the pertinent events in our time. Thank you so much, Mama Dee. We appreciate you. And we look forward to you coming back and joining us next time you have an opportunity. Yes. Yes, yeah, we got to talk. Yeah, as a matter of fact, next time we've got to talk about Reverend Sardon. As soon as we get the article on Reverend Sardon, we're gonna bring you back and have you give us that insight on Reverend Sardon and his wonderful historical contributions to this city and this nation. So we'll be looking for you real soon because it's connected to some legislation and we need to know about it. So yes, we're looking forward.
Thank you. And time flies when you're having fun.
Absolutely, it does. But we will see you all next time on The Female Solution. Come on back tomorrow. And of course, you know that you will be treated to some great wisdom as you listen to the words of wisdom from Mushem Sut. And definitely join us tomorrow evening as you hear after Master Force with Mushem Sut in the morning at 7 a.m. Come back to 7 p.m. and hear some wonderful words from those nonprofit organizations as you hear Bridget talk about nonprofits empowering worlds. And until next time, continue to shine your light. We've come to the end of our show today. If you missed any broadcasts, go to our website for the audio and video archives at www.thefemalesolution.com. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussions. And to our global family joining us from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, xie xie. India, zhanyavad. Japan, arigato. Korea, kamsamnida. Russia, spasiba. Germany, danke. Poland, dziękuję. France, merci. Spain, gracias. Italy, grazie. Egypt, shukran. Ghana, madasi. Nigeria, eshe. South Africa, ngiyabonga. Senegal, jareh. Kenya, asante. Israel, toda. Pakistan, shukriya. Afghanistan, tashakur. Saudi Arabia and Palestine, shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, and may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.